Good morning, world.
Good morning.
So today, we want to talk about COVID, but just putting COVID in perspective.
So, talking about COVID compared to other pandemics, coming up next, I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian, and this is Cedric and Brian. All right, so the reason I wanted to do this is because during this pandemic, we lived through the Trump presidency, which is the unicorn in our time.
Yes.
Although, that's what Hugh Hewitt just did. He did the thing on Nixon and Watergate.
Oh, yes.
So anyway, but we lived through Trump, and we got to see how even things like a drug that had been used for decades was suggested that might help, and I'm not going to mention the name. We don't want to get deplatformed.
We'll put that video link in the description box.
Yes, but even though, because President Trump mentioned it, it basically got banned from the airwaves. So we lived through these weird times through a pandemic. So I want to compare it to past pandemics. So we're just going to go through the list.
Okay, sounds good.
This will be kind of an education to Cedric because he didn't know what I was doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is one of those where I sit down and, what are we talking about? Well, just follow my lead. But before you do that, make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell, and share our videos with everyone you know. And I know you guys are eyeballing these incredible, awesome, custom-made Cedric and Brian hats. And you too can own one or two. If you go onto our website, put in this code, CNB10, which will give you 10% off just in time for this summer because you need a hat when you go outside so you don't get sunburned. That's
right. All right, so I'm going to bring up this. We're going to get right into it. It's going to be a short video. I'm going to bring up this graph right here, and we'll kind of go over some, I'll explain some things that are going on. So first thing I noticed is I spelled Russian wrong in that first column.
You know, I don't know who would have noticed.
There was well, I spelled it right down below.
Russian.
There is no spell check on Google Sheets, apparently.
The Russian flu.
Yes. So there was a flu called the Russian flu, or the flu of 1889. So that first column is the population of the Earth at the time.
So from 1889 to 1890, the population was 1.5 billion.
Yeah, compared to now, which is basically 7.8, 7.75 billion.
Right.
So we've grown a lot in just a little over 100 years as a world. So I brought that one up because that was the precursor basically to the Spanish flu. So you can see the estimates of deaths worldwide from the Russian flu was about 1 million.
About 1 million. Okay.
But, so did you ever hear about that? I know you've heard about the other Russian flu in 1977, but the one back in the 1800s that I'd never heard of before, in today's numbers, so if you use the factor of it's 5 point something, so if you take today's number of 7.75 billion,
right,
that would estimate that 5.1 million would have died in today's numbers from that flu.
Okay.
3.5 million people have died so far due to COVID. And we know it's not over. There's a surge in India. Places like Brazil still are still dealing with it. In places like the U.S., though, the numbers are really starting to drop. Thank God. Hopefully we see that continue to decline. But it just shows you perspective, something we never heard of, and we know that COVID is going to be in the history books for a while because it was such a political hot topic.
Yes.
But in today's numbers, 5.1 million people would have died from that flu. Then we get to the biggie, and this one is why I wanted to talk about perspective.
Right.
So there was 1.8 billion people on Earth back in 1918, 1919. The estimates of people that are died, usually you'll just see books say 50 million people died. But the low estimate, 17 million, all the way up to 100 million people died in actual numbers. So again, COVID has killed 3.5 million in today's numbers. The low estimate of the Spanish flu was 17 million.
That's a huge gap, though, 17 million to 100 million.
Yeah, so I've seen people say it's anywhere from 20 to 60. So anyways, it's because obviously records
Right.
It's hard to get records, especially from countries back then, in China and things like that.
Or is it similar to today's COVID? That's when you can die of anything. There's real COVID on the death certificate.
Exactly. So we don't even know if that 3.5 was actually due to COVID. Let's just take the numbers for what they are. In today's number, if you multiply that factor and you use today's numbers to the Spanish flu, so if there were 7.75 billion people on Earth, 73 to 430 million would have died. So just sit back and take that in. That's where I talk about perspective. It's horrible that people have died from COVID. Perspective. Compare that to the Spanish flu. There is no comparison. And they try to compare this. But then I dug a little deeper. Okay? Then we have a flu was called the Asian flu. I know. How could they call it that?
Well, is that because it originated in...
It did.
Okay, that's why it's called that.
Yes.
It's not a slight on Asia.
But we know that COVID started in Wuhan, China.
Yes.
But you can't say that. Anyway, I digress.
Just the point of origination.
So the Asian flu, or the flu pandemic of 1957, 1958, we don't even hear about. We've heard about the one of 1968, but so in 1958 there was 2.9 billion people on the planet, and anywhere from 1 to 4 million people died from that we never heard of. I don't know if anybody masked. You have to go look that up. Maybe some countries did. Maybe countries in Asia, Japan, China. But in today's number, that would have been 2.7 to 10.7 million people died.
Wow.
Again, compare that to 3.5 million that have died from COVID. And again, that's going to go up. If you look at my graph, 3.5 to greater than 3.5. So on the high end, obviously it's going to go up.
Right.
But as of today, 3.5. Again, perspective. Then you talk about the Hong Kong flu again. They could call it by where it originated.
Yes.
You notice I didn't do that. I said COVID-19. These were influenza strains, by the way. They weren't coronaviruses. They were influenza strains. But by 1968 and 69, there was 3.53 billion people on Earth. And again, it was between 1 and 4 million people died. Now, this was going on during Woodstock.
Yes.
So people partying, the season of love, no masks.
No masks.
What's going on. And in today's number, that's anywhere, what do I have on there? 2.2
2 million to 8.8 million.
8.8. So again, COVID's sitting right in the middle of that. Nobody masked back then.
Yes.
It wasn't this political thing. So
well,
again,
it's weird though, is that COVID was the first time that we quarantined the healthy.
Yeah, I know.
Never in our world's history did we quarantine healthy people.
Yep. And those two flus, the Asian and the Hong Kong flu, they went away.
Yes.
I believe there was a vaccine that they came out pretty quick. So they talk about, warp speed and all this. But I guess there was, because it was an influenza strain, they did have a vaccine. I don't know if that led to bringing the numbers down.
Right.
Because the Spanish flu, I don't believe they had a vaccine back then. And it went away after 2.5 years.
Yep.
That's just the cycle. So whether you attribute COVID going down due to the vaccine or going down like all of the diseases and the pandemics in the past, that they burn themselves out because enough of the population builds up immunity to it. So again, I'm not going to go into the whole vaccination thing. That's for another discussion.
The Fauci ouchie.
But, and it's not a cold, by the way.
Right.
Right. Just putting things into perspective. That, yes, COVID is bad. Yes, it is a pandemic. It's not fake. But put it in perspective. You're looking at those three things. The Spanish flu, it doesn't even touch. When you look at the numbers, not even the adjusted numbers, 17 million to 100 million, when the population of the Earth was only 1.8 billion, is a huge number of people. And we survived. Yeah. It's not to minimize, again, those that have lost people. I know people that have lost people to COVID.
Yes.
But again, unlike the Spanish flu, it affected people between the age of 20 and 60 the most. It actually was a killer of young men.
Yes.
The COVID is a killer of mainly elderly people and people with underlying conditions.
Yes.
Again, not to minimize it. Then we'll just go down to where I spelt Russian correctly. So in 1977, and we were alive in 77. Did you ever hear anything about this Russian
Very
flu?
little.
I don't remember it.
Yeah.
maybe because 700,000 people died. So not even 1 million people died. But in today's numbers, that's 1.3 million. So it's not nothing. And then after that, you had the 2009 swine flu, which I did hear about. I remember hearing about that.
Yes.
And again, those numbers were even less. So in today's numbers, not even 1 million. I'm just trying to do this for perspective. And then your seasonal flu is between 300,000 and 700,000, basically.
Yes.
So much less than COVID. So, but again, this year, if you look at numbers, it seems that seasonal flu disappeared.
Yeah.
So could there be a cross-link between them? Yes. Now, there is a spike in excess deaths, so we know that this is a pandemic. It is real. But just take a look and look at this chart for what it is, and just have some perspective on it. We shut down for the first time, and we quarantined healthy people. I'll take that back. I did read in the Spanish flu, they did quarantine people because, again, look at those numbers. That really, literally wiped out a lot of the population. Mm-hmm. And I think 500 million people were infected with the Spanish flu virus. So basically a third of the earth was infected with that virus. Right. And that means they got sick, because for them to be showing up on statistics, a third of the world was sick from this flu. So yes, I can understand why you would quarantine. These numbers, though, are similar to the 1958 and 1968 flus that we lived through. Nobody got quarantined. Nobody wore masks in this country, and we survived it. So again, not to minimize YouTube, don't take us down. We're not saying this doesn't exist. We know that it exists.
Just putting out some facts and figures and statistics so you guys can take a look at it and make your own objective look at it.
But we also know that people have died because of the mental anguish they've had, because of how this has turned political. We've had people shamed for wearing or not wearing masks. And we know of people, and I know of 3, that have died after getting the vaccine. I'm not saying not to get it, but it doesn't get reported because they just want you to get the vaccine. And when I say they, I don't know why they want it so bad, but they do. And again, you won't hear that on the news, and maybe we'll do a whole nother segment on it. But
yes.
If you feel that you're in a population that could have a bad outcome, then go get the vaccine. Where my problem is because now they're peddling this to 12-year-olds. Anyone from 12 to literally 60, the chances of dying from this are less than 0.4%,
yes.
something
yes.
like that.
Yeah.
So again, and from 12 to 18, you basically have more chance statistically dying on your way to go get the vaccine than you do from the vaccine, or from COVID. And again, like me and Cedric talk about, how many of those basketball players, football players, and baseball players have they talked about dying from getting COVID? Because we know a lot of them got it.
Right.
So, and that's the age group that they're pushing the vaccine on now, because the old elderly and the first wave of people already got the vaccine. So, do they need it? Something you're going to have to decide.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yes. Yes.
So anyways,
good.
I hope you enjoyed this little light. If you watched our last one, it wasn't such a light episode.
No, I'm trying to. Well, we got to do a few light ones coming up, because you're heading back to Nashville.
I'm going back to Nashville. Yep.
He sent out a group text to everybody that went the first time, like, "Hey, right, we're going to Nashville. Anybody want to join us?" Like, this isn't you asking us to go out and have a drink tonight. We got to think about this and put it into action.
Cedric didn't even think about it. He goes, "I'm not going."
Well, because he just responded an hour later. It's like, "Hello, haven't heard from anybody." I'm like, "Oh, jeez, someone respond to him, please."
He's out of school. School's over. He could go. He has no excuse.
I know. Jeez, we were just there like 3 weeks ago. Anyway, all right. So we're gonna do some fun ones coming up. For those of you who really watch our stuff, again, we highlighted Candace last week in her video. Thank you for that. And she's going back to find out who are Cedric and Brian, because if you guys know our beginning, we didn't start out doing all the political stuff and talking about going in the world. And it was because of the shutdown back in March of 2020 that we were forced to go this direction and start talking about this, because we used to do man on the street stuff and do interviews.
Yeah.
But we couldn't do that anymore. go back and check out some of our earlier stuff. And it's like, hey, I want to see you guys. You can send that in your video comment. Hey, let's see you guys talk about this. Or let's see you guys go out into the community and ask people the following question. And we'll take your suggestions for what they're worth, and we'll try and do that and incorporate into one of our upcoming videos.
One of our most controversial videos that we've done, wasn't political, is which way do you hang your toilet paper? Are you an over or an under?
That was one of my favorites.
Go check that video.
We'll put that link in the description box as well. That was before we went political. But anyways, I said before, we thank you guys for watching us and for supporting us. You can't have a YouTube channel. You can be a content creator if you don't have anybody watching. You don't have a YouTube channel. So we thank you guys for watching and sharing our content with your family and friends and people in your circle of influence.
Hey Cedric, should we put another video comment on?
Oh, yes, we should. Should we put this on? Got time for another video comment.
Let's put one from, and what did she go by? I think she just had a birthday yesterday.
Miraculous Ladybug.
Yeah. Wasn't her birthday yesterday?
Yes, it was Wednesday.
Wednesday, yes. So,
yeah, yesterday.
And we did wish you a happy birthday on our Tuesdays, but happy belated if you didn't watch that video.
Right. Yes.
But we're going to put you on right here.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, here's a video comment for you. Big fan of the show. Love the witty banter and sarcasm. Thanks for helping me escape from the joyous life events that the world seems to be offering us right now. And on a lighter note, Brian, maybe we can make a new hashtag for you. Hashtag Brian is sometimes right. Kind of a positive spin.
All right. Thanks for that. And Brian is sometimes right and sometimes wrong.
Sometimes. For those of you who don't get the joke on that, you have to go back and watch our review of Tom McDonald's song, Dear Slim, where Brian is wrong. He's not always wrong. He's a good guy. He likes to express his opinion. And part of me, I've known the guy for 20 years. Sometimes he says stuff just to go against the grain and rock the boat a little bit and muddy the waters.
For those of you that are old enough, there used to be the Donahue show where he would just play the devil's advocate.
Yes.
We know he didn't believe in it, but he had to create conversations. So sometimes I might be doing that.
Yeah, sometimes. But Miraculous Ladybug, as much as I appreciate that, we're going to stick with Brian is wrong because I like that one personally. Well, thank you guys for watching our show. We really appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell, and continue sharing our videos with everyone you know, and continue being good to each other. Until next time, I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian. See you later.